Hey, today we'll talk about the sovereignty and AI sovereignty because I need to confess that actually I'm not the AI person, so I'm not the machine learning or data science guy. Yeah, for sure. I do a lot of things about graphs and agentic memory. It's my favorite topic, but you know, before that, I was more the general architect that was focusing last uh, 5 years on self-sovereign identity and cryptography, decentralized systems, and all these interesting things that give people quite important property and gives people the sovereignty. So what the sovereignty is and why it's matter actually. So we will talk about this today and what sovereignty actually mean in terms of AI. So and we will talk from the human angle because we also have the sovereignty from the angle of the agent, and it's yet another interesting philosophical questions that the agents and the AI systems, they know the humans, but they not the microservices anymore. And if they mimic our identity and represent us and behave on behalf of us, should they have some traits of our identity and should they actually have some kind of rights? And all this is philosophical questions. But today we will focus more on the sovereignty and digital sovereignty. So the sovereignty as a term appear in a politics for countries. Yeah, so you control your own territory, you're making your independent decision without the influence of others. So in internal and external politics, right? But what does sovereignty actually mean for the digital world? And here we usually have the talks about Web 2, Web 3, that big platforms just take out the permissions from the people, and the situation of the current web, that unfortunately, in a Web 2 revolution, we give too much power to the platforms, and right now, the platforms are the representatives of human in the internet, and if you want to do something, you need to go to some kind of platform. And what we want to change in this setup, we want to get back to the state of the internet before the big platforms and Web 2 revolution. Then, if you want to talk to somebody, you don't need to have any man in the middle, any representative, and any individual. You could do everything on behalf of yourself. You control your own data and you control your own compute. And that's it. So, and then the obvious challenge. So, to represent yourself in a network, for sure, we need somehow to have the form of identity or the crypto identity to represent yourself in a secure but anonymous enough way. So, in short, all these problems try to solve the self-sovereign identity and the community around the self-sovereign identity. So, but if you're talking about the digital sovereignty, it's mainly about not the cryptography. It's mainly about the ownership. That you own your identity, you control it, you own your data, and actually the data is the part of your identity. And it's quite simple. And if you talk about what the digital sovereignty mean, accept of the identity and all the goodness that self-sovereign identity bring to the table, we will figure out that we have three big pieces. First of all, it's what the self-sovereign identity really emphasize that you own your data. You control your data, you control the access to your data. It's your data, and actually, it's the data. It's clear. But the data, it's not enough. The next step is just to control or own um, this software that run on top of your data that give this data meaning and make it useful. And if you're talking about the um, AI, it's mean that you own the code or you own somehow the software around your agent. And if you need, you could audit it, you could change it, you could adapt it to your needs. And for sure, now you have the data and software, and now you need compute to run this software. And and it's most challenging because to run the powerful models, we need quite heavy computation power, and we need the GPUs and some powerful servers. And this one is the biggest problem, that majority of our agents built on the large language models, and we want to use some powerful one, and to use some powerful models we need to have the access to the serious hardware and compute. And it's created the question because some people compare the access to the GPUs to the access to the power stations. They say, come on, man, you don't need to run your own power station to consume the electricity. Yeah, but the problem is that for the electricity, we have, first of all, the laws that protect the consumers, and it's not so easy to cut you from the supply. And we have the multiple suppliers, for example, in Germany on the market. If you don't like one, you could switch to another one without any consequences. So we have much better regulation and much better control from the consumer, and some kind of agreements between the consumers and producers. And for sure, it's the common commodity that regulated by the state, regulated by the market, and all other things. But with the LLMs, we don't have this. And you know, in some point of time, you have this problem for majority of the software, that if players go out of the market, you left with the garbage that doesn't work anymore. Or if, for example, the ChatGPT, OpenAI decided that you're not so good for them, and then they just cut your access rights from the account, you lose everything. You lose all your conversations, but you could not use this anymore. And if you will take to the account that all our working flows and all other things right now heavily depends on the LLMs, it will be the tragedy. So yeah, right now we have the niche in between that we needs to own the computation power and the models as the same as we owning the data. And then it's open the question how to own the expensive infrastructure or create the commodity for this infrastructure, that we maybe as a group of people or as a group of states could manage it. And for example, it's already a couple of interesting uh, initiatives in Switzerland that they making their own LLMs that align to the state that have the security guardrails that acceptable not by US but by the Switzerland, and it's accessible for all the citizens. And actually, this kind of government commodity could be quite interesting. So the sovereignty, in case that you could host everything that you need together with the hardware. Uh, and yet another thing that if you own the model and you host the model you own, is the highest level of privacy because you have zero sharing policy. You don't share your data. You make sure that your data is not contributing to the training of the models. You sure that your data is not contributing to training of the models that will discriminate the group of people to whom you potentially belong. And that's yet another problem with the big models because right now, for example, US government actively use it. And let's say their policy to big amount of groups that on their view is not true Americans really scare me because I have feeling that right now they move into the same direction as Germany was moving in 30s of the previous century, and we almost in the 30s in our century. So I have the feeling that this hundreds of years haven't teach us the lesson. And yeah, so the sovereignty is owning your data, your compute, and potentially the infrastructure for this compute. And for the AI infrastructure, is not so easily achievable. But what's achievable is the local and edge uh, agents. Because right now we could use some smaller LLMs to run even on our machine. We could afford the server with couple of GPUs that could run middle size models. Maybe the speed will be not the speed of light, but they will be capable to work right now. And we really waiting for the movement of the agents that they get smaller, more specialized. Some of them will run on the LLMs. Some of them will run on distilled SLMs that are small language models that may be capable for some much smaller and much specialized tasks. And maybe some of the agents will be based on the classical machine learning and neurosymbolic approaches. And for them, it will be affordable to run not only on the powerful user machine, but even on the user phone. And for example, I was working for King for a long time, and we built the agent that was running on the phone and make the inference on the user device. But for sure, for the collaboration with the large language models, he was using some hosted providers. But the agent itself, with all the inference, decision making, graph building, and all other stuff, was run it perfectly on iPhone or Android, actually. And that's one of the targets for the private AI and sovereign AI. Because if you own your phone, you own the hardware where you run your agent, you get the full data snapshot of all the data and conversations in your hands. So you have the full sovereignty, except actually Kim is not sharing their code in open source. So it was the missing piece. It was the plans to share, but then the company changed its strategy. And so why sovereignty is matter? Because nobody could cut you, right? So you own everything. You could change everything. You could do with it anything that you want. Plus, if you decide to contribute to training of some models, you could do it in more fair way. That if you provide some data, then you get some benefits from the models, and let's create a more equal uh, data economy. And we could talk about this concept of the small data and more fair the data economy the next time. And today we was talking about the sovereignty from the user perspective, that user own his identity, that user own his data, his software to run on top of the data, and in theory own the computation power to make it happen. And maybe the states and the group of people that believe on the sovereignty could create the shared computation pools and maybe co-host something on their own federated community-driven conditions actually. And I really believe that it's possible, and that's how we could protect our future from the surveillance capitalism and the control and domination of some big companies and maybe the countries that make the agreements with the big companies. So why not?